If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. It can be said with a great deal of certainty that narcissists are masters of disguise. In other words, what you see isn't necessarily what you're going to get in the long term. And this is especially true when we're talking about covert narcissists. Now, let's keep in mind that these individuals want every bit as much the need for control and dominance and superiority as their overt counterparts. But they tend to be a little bit more subtle in the way that they go about doing it. And many times, it takes quite a bit of time for that narcissism to reveal itself. The covert narcissist, just like any overt narcissist, looks at you for narcissistic supply. They need you to prop them up. And so they've decided, well, if I'm too out there, if I'm too outlandish in the way that I try to get you to maintain my supply, then you're going to leave pretty quickly. And so they're in it for the long haul. And over time, their schemes can be revealed, but at first you don't necessarily see it. Now, this is most commonly experienced when you already have factors in place that are going to keep you bound to that individual anyway. For example, if you have children together, or if this is someone who's part of your extended family and you're going to be seeing each other for quite a bit, or socially, you know that you need that person. They know that they need you around because you're a means to an end, so they want to kind of keep you in their good graces. Or at work, you're both there at the place of work because you need the job, and so you're going to be bound with each other. And sometimes the long-term element is there because that person feels a duty, you feel a duty, whether it's morally or otherwise, to keep the relationship moving. The pattern of the long game is based or has two strong elements that go along with it. And it's so essential for you to understand what these two elements are. The first is what we refer to as intermittent reinforcement. The long-term pattern of covert narcissism is set up by the intermittent reinforcement. Basically, the narcissist is going to let you think, I'm with you, not really. And there are lots of mood swings, and they give you lots of mixed messages. And with intermittent reinforcement, the goal is to keep you in a state of confusion. They don't want you to be confident about your conclusions that you might draw. And then the second primary element that tells us that you're in the long game with a covert narcissist is that there's a slow, steady building of a trauma bond. You might think to yourself, I want to be my own free person. But then over time, it's like you begin thinking, I don't know if that would be a good idea. And so as time goes on, when you're with this covert narcissist, your own confidence in your decision-making begins to erode. The narcissist wants you to think less about who you are, and you have to continue to filter your behaviors, your beliefs, your priorities through them. That's how it works, and that's how they establish the long game with you. Now, let's break that down, the intermittent reinforcement and the trauma bond. When we talk about intermittent reinforcement, first we're talking about that covert narcissist giving you just enough positive reinforcement to keep a glimmer of hope alive. Have you ever had situations where you thought, we had a good day, or we were working on a project that turned out all right, and we laughed, and we had some nice conversation, but then over time it's like, but we can't keep it sustained. And so in the intermittent reinforcement, the covert narcissist is also going to give you messages of disappointment. Well, I thought we were doing pretty good, but you keep screwing things up. And they're going to intermittently give you messages of rejection. And this is meant to keep you working harder to stay in their good graces. And so that's what we talk about with intermittent reinforcement. In other words, the reinforcement of any positives is not constant. It's consistently inconsistent. It's reliably unreliable, if you understand what I'm saying. And then when we take it over a long period of time, you know that the trauma bond is happening when you keep going back to that person, that narcissist, for approval, whether it's in your mind or actually in the way that you communicate. Why can't we just get along better than this? Don't you see that I've done these nice things for you? And you start bargaining with that person, and you've quietly bought into the message that you're not adequate. The narcissist might imply, they may say it out loud, but the implication is, hey, nice try, but you're still not good enough. And so as a result, you keep going back thinking, what do I have to do to stay in this person's good graces? And a bonding of a negative variety begins to happen. And ultimately, you may not see it in the moment, but an outside observer would realize this relationship that the covert narcissist has with you is a game. And you're the toy that they're playing with. So taking it a little bit further, let's understand that when you're dealing with a covert narcissist, quietly, that narcissist has already determined what the script is. That person has written the script, and your input is not necessary. How many times have you thought to yourself, well, I want to share my thoughts about where we could go in our relationships. Like, no, I'm good. They don't really want to hear from you on things like that. Now, there are times when you can experience moments of optimism, and then you start thinking, well, maybe we're going somewhere good. But then ultimately that positive feeling simply cannot be sustained. And I've had so many people talk with me about how I keep trying it, and I think maybe we're getting somewhere, but then we just go backwards. It's the old 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards. And whenever things go backwards, guess whose fault it is? It's your fault. There's lots of blame that comes along with it, and shame that they put onto you, and that becomes part of the bond. You need to try harder. Come on, you need to try harder to stay in my good graces, and so you do. And then the message is, we would have a good relationship if it weren't for you. I'm doing everything right. And that's that self-impressed attitude that the narcissist brings. And sometimes the put down toward you is subtle. Sometimes it's extremely obvious. And in the meantime, when all of this is, and by the way, that just becomes a cycle that's repeated over and over. And in the meantime, as the narcissist is playing this long game with you, you'll notice certain things that go along with that. They don't really give you a lot of credit for your strengths or your successes. It's like when you shine, when you do well, that threatens them, because in the relationship, you see that script says they're supposed to be the one that gets to shine. The narcissist might hand out those positive reinforcements, gifts or compliments, and then it doesn't take time before they're going to send the message that says, never mind, I quit, or I didn't mean it. And so again, you have that, come on into me, stay away from me. And then if you're having conversation with a narcissist about what might be going on in the relationship that needs improvement, they might, and emphasize might, admit faults. But then if they do admit any kind of faults, like, I shouldn't have gotten so mad, or maybe I need to spend more time with you, it tends to be superficial, and ultimately they'll eventually backtrack on whatever admissions they make about their contributions to the negatives inside the relationship. Ultimately, then, it becomes your job to keep the relationship fixed. Well, at the same time, you're the one who needs to be fixed. Okay, and so again, that's that them looking at you as supply, and then the mixed messages that keep going on. And then when outsiders are observing your relationship, that covert narcissist can turn on the charm. They can use humor and be friendly and be pleasant. And so they give the impression to other individuals that, we're good. And you watch that and think, well, maybe we're getting somewhere. But then in private, you find out once again that you're a disappointment. And the narcissist still wants you to have loyalty toward them, but it's always fleeting and it's never really exchanged in reverse. That's what I'm talking about when I say they hook you in for the long haul, intermittent reinforcement, and then they pull you slowly into a trauma bond. You constantly are feeling perplexed. You feel like you're being played. You're in a guessing game. You feel less than secure, but you feel like you can't get out. Now, at the base of all of this, you can see that you have the core ingredients loud and clear in the covert narcissist. They want to have dominance. They want to have control. They're very self-impressed. They're very entitled, but they're just not quite as loud and out there as others might be. But I'm hoping that over time, you can realize, wait a minute, we have a pattern going on here, and it's been going on for way too long, and I don't need to participate in this. And you may feel duped, and you may feel foolish for having stayed in a relationship that's not healthy for you. But the bottom line is, if you see it now, then you can do something about it. And I'm hoping that you can eventually, once you see this pattern, you can eventually decide, I can't afford to allow my psychological well-being to hinge on the whims of a schemer. So when you claim your own privilege to choose for yourself who you'll be, and then that narcissistic person predictably comes against you, then I think it's going to be necessary for you to ask the question, what does it say about a relationship when I'm not even allowed to simply be me? I don't think that's a relationship worth continuing. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good insight with respect to what you're dealing with. As I've mentioned, the covert narcissist tends to be the one that they reveal themselves much more slowly, so it's much more difficult to know what you're dealing with. But once you do, I'm hoping you can be on it and make your own adjustments and unhook where necessary. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, go ahead and do that. Hit the like button too. We'd appreciate that. And we'll keep more videos, because the more you're able to educate yourself on this, then knowledge is power, and you're able to live into your best version of yourself. If you have a need for therapy, and I know that many times as you're trying to sift this out, you could use someone to help you, see what your blind spots might be, and look at your deep history and how you got hooked into this. And so we are sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com. It's an online therapy resource. There's a link below that will take you to a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you can choose from. In addition, I also have my therapeutic courses, and these are like taking an online class. They're very extensive, lots of videos, questions, and written material. Ready, Set, Connect, about having good connection skills. This Is Me, about your boundaries. Free to Be, finding yourself despite the controllers. We have my podcast. We have our website with lots of articles on there, and then we have my books and more resources. Thanks for letting me be part of your journey. The covert narcissist, they'll play this long game with you, but over time, I'm hoping you can remind yourself it's exactly that. It's a game, and I don't want anybody to see me as a toy to be messed with. Instead, I'm hoping you can see yourself as a person of dignity, respect, and civility. That's what we stand for here on Team Healthy. And in doing so, you can find your place of peace.